part of the Democratic Party beforehand, and I was always disillusioned with recurring elections over and over again. And when I read this book, I started talking to my fellow soldiers about their lives. And what I found was one common thread, which is a huge working class background. Whether it was these people are coming in because they couldn't afford school, or they couldn't afford insurance for their family, or they were just looking for a job. This wasn't a patriotic act for most of these men. This was survival for most of these men. In early 2003, I got orders to go to Iraq. And at this time, my mom had gotten in a car accident for which the Army had only given me a few days to go visit her. I had recently gotten married, which was falling apart at a rapid rate, and I decided I needed help. So I went to the Army mental health specialist. When I went to her, she came to me and she clearly said, I know you need help, but I'm getting out in 3 months and I have no problem telling you they will not give you what you need. They will try every other option until they can give you what you need, because what you need may prevent you from carrying a weapon. Upon that, I returned back to my company area. The moment I got back, they said, you went and talked to mental health, you need to be under 48-hour watch. So not only did they not give me the help I needed, but they humiliated me by forcing me to live in front of my fellow soldiers for 2 days. At this time, I had also had a friend who tried a fake suicide attempt to get out of the military and expedited this process. When I saw this happen, I said, this is my only way out. 3 days before my deployment, my ex-wife asked me for a divorce. I had no intention of going to fight this war. So I did this fake suicide attempt. And I still have the scar to this day, and I still have the nerve damage to this day. But unlike my battle buddy who went to Iraq and accidentally killed 7 civilians, destroying him mentally, I resisted that war, and I continue to resist the killing of Iraqi civilians and American youth for the purpose of going to college. I'm going to read a quote from Leon Trotsky. Workers are being deprived of their unemployment relief, social insurance is being menaced, wages are being reduced, and government employees are already facing this. This is from 1934, 1935, speaking to the French workers. Now in 2010, we see the exact same attacks happening on American workers. The same exact rhetoric that was used then is being used now on American workers. Beyond that, coupled with amid huge home foreclosures, the privatization of education, the destruction of our plan through the naked pursuit of profit, and the demonization of immigrants, you would think that the American working class is more divided than ever. But the polls show something different. The polls show that while the only time you hear the word socialist on TV is when Glenn Beck is saying that Obama hasn't been paying his dues, or that I want to kill your grandmother with death panels, 36% of Americans are still standing up and saying, we prefer a socialist system to this rotten capitalist one. People all over the United States, not just in the United States, but all over the world are standing up and saying, we will not pay for this crisis. We will not let this be put on the backs of workers while we still see the financial industry skyrocketing at an enormous rate. Our first session today will begin with the economic crisis and working people. The speakers will include Ms. Genevieve Morris from right here at the Establishment Local Union at this building right here at UMass. And Mr. Alan Jones, a founding member of Socialist Alternative and an editor for Justice. Also writing on the international website, socialistworld.net. And then after that, at 3:30, our second session will begin with Socialism, Why We Need It, with Sidney Sheehan, our nation's most well-known anti-war activist, who was courage to stand up against American imperialism after the death of her son, and continued courage to stand up as an inspiration to me, as many other Americans. Also, Brian Caloris will be speaking with her. He's a member of the executive member, committee member of the Committee for Workers International, and also an editor of our paper Justice. Also, make sure to be here bright and early tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I know it's early, but bagels and coffee will be here. A small donation is suggested. For our first session will be entitled Labor Struggles in the Time of Crisis. The three speakers are persons right on the front line of class struggle. And they are Marty Harrison, a Philadelphia nurse who recently helped lead a successful strike at Temple University Hospital. Also John Harrison of IBEW, who successfully has spearheaded leading a new bargaining unit in his place of work. And also Steve Early, who will facilitate the discussion. Steve is a labor journalist, a lawyer, and besides the Boston Globe, he has written for Counterpunch and many other notable sources. After that, around 11:30, we'll break into a few workshops. The Obama administration's insurance company giveaways gave nothing away to working people, only it did force common working people to buy into subpar, overpriced health insurance. And single-payer health care is dead with Ashley Fox, the architect of the Vermont single-payer bill, will be held in one of the labeled rooms outside. Also, it's not war, but it's struggle, rather, that gives us the freedoms we share today. And the labor movement has always been at the head of those struggles. So Why Unions Matter with Rob Mirabito will also be held in one of those rooms. And the election of the first black president has not shaken the foundations of institutional racism, nor has it stopped people like Byron Williams, whose supposed Glenn Beck-inspired revolution was aimed at the NAACP. So Racism in the Age of Obama will be held with Algier Hawkins, author of The State of Black America, will be held in one of those rooms also. Our planet is being destroyed by the naked pursuit of profit. And to think that the BP explosion that killed 11 workers seems to have not even happened, considering the continued offshore drilling. So therefore, Socialism in the Environment with Josh Gordz of ASME Local 3650 will be held in also one of those rooms. Tomorrow will bring us to lunch around 1 o'clock. There will be pizza here. And then at 2:45, we'll meet back in the Snowden Auditorium for 4 more discussions, where millions of undocumented workers are being scapegoated, their lives being restricted, with laws like the Arizona law, and also restricting them from practicing day labor. So linking labor with immigrants' rights with Doretta Manuela, activist of the Boston Mayday Coalition, will be held also in one of those rooms. Now, the attacks on public education are an outright assault on working people. This is a clear picture of how the ruling class is trying to force working people to deal with their mistakes. The demonization of underperforming schools, or rather underfunded schools, and teacher union busting is one of the core reasons for carrying this out. So defending and extending public education, with Tom Crean, chapter leader of Brooklyn, New York for the United Federation of Teachers, will be held also in one of those rooms to be labeled soon. Now in the 10th year running of the Afghanistan war, the longest running war in U.S. history, there's no sign of ending, only escalation. With cross-border attacks into Pakistan, it seems that our fragile alliance with the Pakistani government is crumbling at a rapid rate. War in Afghanistan and Pakistan with Mike Russell, a school site representative of Roxbury, will be held also in one of those rooms. And finally, tomorrow at 4 p.m., the Tea Party date between Lauren Spivak and Jesse Lessinger, campaigner for education and writer of socialistalternative.org, will be held right here, and I'm sure that'll be a lively debate between the free market warrior and a socialist comrade. People have come from Rhode Island, New York. I came down with my fiance from New Hampshire. Cindy Sheehan came all the way from California. So I'd like to thank you all once again for coming. Without further ado, the economic crisis and working people.